Hi there. Welcome to week 2 of EDET 454 during the spring 2025 semester. I hope you had a good first week, not just of class, but of life. I can't say I had a great first week. I don't know if you listened to the news at all during the last 7 days since this class started, but I would say things aren't off to a great start to the semester. They're okay with me as far as my classes go, and I think they're okay with me regarding you and this class. I'm looking at websites that are awesome, and I'm very pleased with how many of you have taken the task of just creating your Google site website shell and really making it creative. But it wasn't just week 1 for you in class, or week 1 for me in class in this spring 2025 semester. It was also week 1 for the new administration. And I have to say, I'm very displeased and upset and anxious and generally sad about just how things have unfolded during the last 7 days of the spring semester. I've seen a lot of hatred. I've seen a lot of continued racism in the administration, the duly elected administration. I've seen young kids in schools and churches being terrorized. And that's not good. I mean, it's not good from a teaching perspective. It's not good from a human perspective. I've seen underqualified people being elevated to positions of power that can really make a difference. And basically, I'm just generally really concerned, especially since I'm a teacher. And many of you are going to be teachers a few years from now, and you should also be concerned. There has been substantiated talk about getting rid of the Department of Education, and that the way things have been unfolding, that seems like it would not be beyond the scope of reality. And just the way that vulnerable young people in America are being in many ways terrorized right now. From my perspective, again, it's just me. I went into teaching, probably like many of you, because I care a lot about helping other humans in my circle learn important things, and I also just care about people in general. I mean, the best part of any teaching job, in my opinion, are the relationships that you form with the people that you're trying to help learn important things with, and to know and to see with my like clearly that vulnerable populations of people that you're going to be teaching, that I'm currently teaching now, to see members of those populations being compromised at the national level has been just, I'm very sad. But that's me. I mean, this is, by the way, I'm not being political right now. I'm just making observations about what's happening in our society, and particularly in the last week. And it's really making me sad. And like you, sometimes I think about what's happening and I think, well, is there anything at all that I can do? I mean, you seem pretty powerless. Unless you have billions of dollars in the bank, it doesn't seem like you may not have a voice right now. By the way, I don't have $1 billion in the bank. I'm month to month, as they say, and I have been since 1982. But I still have a good life, and I have a lot of people in my life with whom I love and who I hope love me, which, there you go. I'm winning. as certain politicians might say these days. But I'm here to tell you in week 2 of this class that there is something you can do to make things better. There is a way to sort of fight against the sadness and the negativity that is happening in the United States right now, and that will probably continue to happen until enough people do resist. And I'm not talking about resisting, and I'm not talking about political resisting. I'm talking about what is it that we can do as professional educators to actually make things better and to improve the trajectory of our lives and the lives of the people that we love. You know, like, forget about the bigger picture, you know, forget about state or national politics or what countries it seems that we might decide to annex for some reason. Forget about all of that and just focus on the people you love and the people who love you, and what can we do as teachers, not only to support those people in our lives, to support ourselves, to provide some self-care, but also to possibly make things better for the future, to possibly make sure that, or at least maximize the probability that some of the big issues that seem to be very hateful in our society right now, in our culture, might actually in some ways be mitigated. And that when your kids are your age, that they're living in a country, or in a society, I should say, that is a society that you really would want for them, you know, that they're happy and loved and successful in doing things that matter. And you're not going to believe me, but week 2 is actually a lot about that. So I typed into ChatGPT recently. I asked it, what's the most important role that teachers play in their professional practice? I put that in there because it's something that I think a lot about, and I was wondering, what does the machine think about that question? And let me just read to you the first sentence of the response that I got, because I think it's really important, and actually I agree with it. It says, the most important role teachers play in their professional practice is to facilitate learning and personal development for their students. That's pretty generic. But the next sentence is really good. This involves creating an environment that supports intellectual growth, critical thinking, creativity, and emotional well-being. That's pretty interesting. It's interesting that that was a response from the machine, you know, that synthesizes lots and lots of information about what teachers do in their practice. And that is, to me, really speaks to the truth about being teachers right now, and the truth about what is going to make things better for you and me if I'm still around, and your kids, and my kids and my grandkids. What's going to make things better? And I think, going back to that second sentence, creating an environment that supports intellectual growth, critical thinking, creativity, and emotional well-being. This actually speaks to what week 2, again, is all about. Week 2, in week 2, well, let me go back to week 1. So last week, I asked you to create a website shell for this class. And then I asked you to create a Canva multimedia presentation about yourself and about where you come from and about your culture and about cultural factors that influence and affect just your development. And then I just asked you some questions about things that you like and things that you don't like. But there was a hidden curriculum to what happened last week, and you probably have figured it out, but if you haven't, let me just lay it out for you. First of all, you created a means to communicate with me, your teacher, during the next, few months of the semester. So now, here we are in an online environment. I'm going to be asking you to create things that are going to help you become, hopefully, an effective educator. And you're going to have to communicate them to me, and I'm going to have to provide feedback for you. And I already have D2L to help provide feedback, but I needed a way to see what you do and what you have developed. And so I created kind of a central meeting place online. So if you click on the students button, there you are. It's a list of students, and I can go to everything about your work. Also, other students can go to everything about the stuff you've been doing. So if you have a question about what's expected or what you might want to do for a project from here on out, you can email me, and I'm happy to communicate with you. But you can also go and see what other students have done. Also, you can go and learn more about other students because they've provided a social presence for themselves by posting their Canva presentation. And I get to know you a little bit better. And so that's another reason why I wanted you to develop this online presence for yourself, because I get to know some things about you that, frankly, I might not have never have known even if we were in a face-to-face class together every week. So in some ways, I may get to know you as an individual better this way than if it was in a more traditional environment. And finally, one of the things that we've done is create a platform, or I should say an environment, for you to be able to create things using some of the tools that interact with a website. So you're going to be creating pages in Google Sites and embedding things and linking things and cutting and pasting things, and that's at one level that's a supreme act of creativity. And so I've set you up with an environment that has the potential to be highly creative. Now, going back to what I talked about initially about week 1 is that I believe that teachers and teaching and education does have the power to respond in a constructive way to the kind of negative elements that have presented themselves in our country during the last week. And again, I'm not talking politics. I'm just talking about observing just acts of terrorism, acts of terror. Political leaders who are breaking the law right now, doing things, creating actions that are not in alignment with the intentions of the executive branch, and perhaps not even of the legislative branch of government with Congress, and that's all sort of politics, but as educators, there's an underlying sense of anxiety that this current administration might overnight just dissolve the Department of Education, even though it takes more than just one person deciding it should be gone. But so far, these things are happening, whether they're legal or not. They're just happening. And there doesn't seem to be a strong response to it from a legal perspective initially. And that's very, very disturbing. And one thing about dissolving the Department of Ed or for example, attacking DEI initiatives, diversity, equity, and inclusion. If you're a teacher, you recognize that there are a lot of benefits from focusing on the value of putting into place, systems and structures that provide equity for students who don't start on the same, don't get to start out life on the same level, or who have disabilities or challenges in some way that make it difficult for them to be able to succeed in the environments that we're trying to create. And we put mechanisms in place, and many of those are under attack. And some of them are just blatantly racist. There's no other way to put it. And again, I'm not talking politics. I'm just talking about what's happening in front of my own two eyes regarding the manner in which policies are being negated or changed without input from the people who will be affected by those policies. And that, in the cases of diversity, that oftentimes means making policies that can affect minority populations without any voice from those populations being heard when decisions are made about them, and generalizations made about populations, and negative comments, negative characterizations made about certain populations, and many of them are just blatantly racist. And so, but again, I believe that in week 2 there's something that we can do about it. So let me talk about week 2. So in week 2, you're going to be asked to define the population of students who you will likely be teaching in a few years, if you do in fact choose to continue on the path of professional education. So you're going to be defining your students, and then very importantly, you are going to be identifying what you believe is worth learning for those students. Now, one thing that I've learned recently about the students in this class is that we have a wide variety of students, a wide variety of majors, of minors, and of backgrounds. And by the way, none of you, as far as I can tell, are actually going to become special education teachers. You're all, as far as I can tell, if you do become a teacher, you will likely be a middle school or a secondary educator in the area of a specific subject matter. And however, you will all have students who have individual challenges and who need individual support for different things. And so that's really one of the focuses of this class, is how can technology be used to provide those types of supports. But going back to this week, so you're gonna describe who your likely students are, and again, if you're not teaching right now, you can just decide to describe any students who you're currently observing as in part of your field experience, or you can consider ideally who would you like to be teaching, or where would you like to be teaching. What's your ideal job as an educator? You're going to describe your students, because from here on out, you're going to be asked to create things using technology that are specific to a specific population. And I'm hoping that it will be a population that you will be teaching sometime soon. So you're going to define the population, and then I'm going to ask you to do something that is the answer to a lot of the really difficult challenges that we're facing in our culture right now, or in our society right now. And I'm going to ask you to seriously consider what you think is important for your students to learn. What's important? The reason why that is such a valuable exercise is because all teachers have to address that question for themselves, because all teachers make decisions that every day that provide instruction over the things that teachers think are important for kids to learn. And I'm not just talking about sort of a primary grade teacher who wants kids to become literate, want them to read and write and do basic math, you know. Yeah, those are important. But there are also a number of skills that teachers at the primary grade level, middle school, high school, a number of skills that aren't academic related but are very important. And it's up to teachers to actually identify them as important and then help students learn that. Whether it's part of the regular curriculum or not, it doesn't matter, because teachers make decisions every day that facilitate the learning of skills that aren't, you know, academic. For example, if you're a teacher who chooses to help or chooses to arrange your classroom so that students work successfully in teams, you are a teacher who values teaching constructive collaboration skills. You think those are important, and you're going to help students learn how to do that. Racism is a genuine, persistent, and pernicious problem in our culture. There are some teachers out there who are actively anti-racist. That is, they teach anti-racism. They actually identify that as a skill set that is really important. And it doesn't matter whether or not the governor of your state is trying to clamp down on DEI or whatever. You, as a teacher, you have the power and the ability to address anti-racism as an actual skill set that you value. You could be teaching algebra, you could be teaching biology, you could be teaching English. It doesn't matter. You can identify anti-racism as something that you're going to be, you know, as a skill set you're going to facilitate along with the content that you're trying to teach. And it could be something very formal, or it could be something very informal. It could be just a teacher who identifies a particular racist behavior that's identified in popular culture, or maybe even identified in their own classroom, and decides to address that in a constructive way. I was a biology teacher when I started out my professional practice, and I was I wanted my students, first of all, to be good communicators. So I provided a lot of opportunity for my students to be able to communicate in writing and in person. And I also taught them how to be effective communicators. At least I hope I did. I wanted my students to be constructive collaborators, and I taught them how to get along, how to be constructive, how to carry out assigned roles, that kind of thing. I also wanted my students to think like scientists. And so as a biology teacher, that wasn't necessarily part of the curriculum, but it was part of my curriculum. That was me. So I had to first identify, what does it mean to think scientifically? Just as a person, as a friend, as a partner, as a citizen in America, and teach my students how to do that. I hope that I did. I really do. So I'm going to ask you to consider, for you to identify what's worth learning, and then to make sure that you articulate that. Because again, going back to what I was first talking about for week 2, there are a lot of problems that exist in our society, and I don't think, you know, teaching, you know, Civil War history is going to solve any of them, and I don't think teaching biology is going to solve any of them, and I don't think teaching algebra is going to solve any of them. But as a teacher, I want to help solve some of these bigger problems. I want to make that part of the culture of learning and of the goal of learning in my class. And so I can choose to teach skills that in the future may impact the world that we're living in now. And personally, I think things like anti-racism can help, can help like sustain, like help make changes for the better in that way. And I think good communication skills can. I think being media literate can. And I think it's up to every teacher to help teach media literacy, to help teach skills that help students learn how to differentiate between genuine facts and things that people are just making up, or at least to be skeptical. Oh, we're going to need that more than ever as people become more media centric in our culture. So in week 2, I'm going to have you identify and describe your student population. I'm going to have you identify what you think is worth learning. And again, I'm going to be talking about that a lot as we proceed in this class. And finally, I have a couple of small reflection activities for you to identify and reflect on tools and resources that can help students with individual needs in your class, help them be able to succeed, to be able to learn within the parameters of your classroom, to be able to learn what you think is important for them to learn, and to be able to overcome some of the challenges that individual students might have, whether they're physical or emotional or cognitive or social. There are a lot of challenges that individual students have to be able to find success in the typical classroom, and there are a lot of technology solutions for students to be able to address some of those challenges. And so that's being folded into week 2 as well. So those are the things that you are going to be focusing on this first week. I hope you get a lot out of the projects. And again, I hope you find I hope you find something really positive about recognizing and understanding the power that you will have as a professional educator in terms of helping your students learn things that are going to help maybe not make the world a better place, but at least make their world a better place. And if we can do that, then maybe when they're our age, they won't be facing the kinds of challenges that we are right now during this week 2 of this semester. And things will be better for everybody as a result. So I hope you enjoy the projects. I'll get everything graded from the week 1 very quickly, and I'll provide feedback over your website shell if it's needed. And I will also I also look forward to learning more about you as I review your own presentations about yourself. So look forward to that, and carry on.